My 4-year-old son has an imaginary friend he talks to when he's on the toilet. They have full-blown conversations. He'll tell his friends about his day, or what he's going to eat for dinner, or what's happened on an episode of Paw Patrol. And then he'll even talk like he's hearing a conversation like, uh-huh, uh-huh. That's so cool. But doesn't like me coming near the toilet because he says his friend is a bit shy. He describes his friend as a tall, skinny man with a kind-looking face, which is weird because I've never heard him use that phrase. So one day he's on the toilet as we're trying to get out and into the car, and I'm calling out to my son to hurry up. And does he need help? No, he tells me. The man is telling me about a sad story. Don't come near us though, because he's sad and shy, and if you get near the toilet he'll run away. I'm kinda in a rush and in no mood for this, so I walk down to the hall and around to the toilet, and my son yells, "No! Come back!" And I swear to this day, I felt a gust of wind go by me, which is impossible in my hallway. My son is mad and said, "He's gone. He's gone now. Good one, Dad." And then next second you can hear my front door slam shut. Only thing is, my front door wasn't open. I always keep it closed and locked even when we're home. I don't believe in ghosts, but that shit rocked me for a few days. I've suffered from insomnia as far back as I can remember. I was in the 2nd grade and it was really early in the morning, I think around 5 or so. I had a little TV on my nightstand and it was definitely watching Lord of the Rings on VHS. I had the volume up super loud because of my ceiling fan always made a ruckus throughout the night. I was super into the movie when all of a sudden, all of the sound started to fade away. I remember I became confused and reached to turn my TV up thinking it had broken, but then I realised the sound of the fan had faded with it. The only way I can describe it is comparing it to someone turning the volume down on a car radio. I was suddenly feeling overwhelmed by an intense feeling of euphoria. I have never experienced anything like it. I absolutely cannot describe how utterly at peace I felt. I was able to comprehend what was happening, and then it clicked in my head that I was dying. Keep in mind that I'm in the 2nd grade, so this is a pretty intense conclusion, but I just knew it. I rolled over onto my back, ready to, and excited to accept my fate. That was when I saw it. There was a large white figure in my hallway, just hovering and pulsating a white aura. I quickly panicked and then began calling out for my brother. His room was across the hallway. The figure glided to the end of my bed and just sat there watching. I'm not really sure how much time passed, but the figure suddenly vanished, sound came back, and the euphoria disappeared. My brother's room, where I practically flew into his bed. He woke up, and when he saw how panicked I was, he began to panic as well. I was hysterical and just kept telling him it was a ghost. We did what any other kids would do and hide under the covers. After a while we got anxious and I bravely made a peephole. I'm in the blanket to check the time on the clock, hoping that it would be daylight soon. 5:30. The clock read 5:30 in the morning. Then the phone rang, and it rang and rang and rang. Me and my brother start to panic even more, then silence. Once again, it began to ring and ring and ring. We jumped out of bed and took our turns running from the light switch to the light switch until we had a lit path to the living room. Our house was 5,000 plus square foot. This was not an easy task. We got to the living room and watched cartoons until Mum woke up. She was livid, yelling at us for being up so early. I told her I saw a ghost, which only made her more upset. My brother, who was always tormenting my irrational fears, got mad at her and started telling her this isn't a joke and it isn't my imagination. I started telling her to check the phone because I saw the ghost around 5:30 and it must have been the ghost calling. She went to check the phone and went to the other room for a while. Suddenly she wasn't upset anymore. When we asked if it was a ghost, she said it was a telemarketer. She was so nice about it, she let me sleep in her room the next few days. I thought maybe since it was my brother's birthday that she didn't want to argue, but she never let me sleep in her room. I got home from school on the 15th. I saw the ghost in the early hours on the 13th. My mum called me to the family room and told me to sit in her lap and that she needed to tell me something. I obliged. My great-grandma passed away in the hospital at 5:30 a.m. and the phone calls were my grandma calling to notify us. Me and my great-grandma were extremely close. To this day, I get chills thinking about it. I know that there are a few ways to explain the occurrence, but I know for a fact that this was 100% a paranormal experience. My mum and brother still back me up on it today. I used to visit my friend at her house in a rural farming area before she moved. I'd sleep over a lot and would usually just hang out and draw. I slept in the living room on the couch, and there were 2 mirrors in the room fairly close to the TV. When the TV was off, I was walking by. I started seeing shadows move behind me. I thought it was a warped TV screen or something. Then, one evening, I walked into the living room to get my sketchbook so I could sketch in her bedroom. I bent over and picked it up, stood up straight, looked in the mirror, and there was a man behind me. A man standing in the hallway leading to the living room. He was average height, bald, and a bit old. I turned to look at him and no one was there. Turned to look at the mirror again and he was gone. I felt a little spooked. Another time we were just sitting in the living room and we heard what sounded like little kids' footsteps running across the upstairs quickly. She had 2 adult siblings, but they were out at work leaving us alone. Around that time I decided to sleep in my friend's room instead of the living room, only to wake up in the middle of the night to see 4 of her posters slowly getting peeled off the wall. They looked as if someone were carefully unsticking the tape and taking them down. The next morning my friend put them back up saying, "I need to get better tape for these." She and her family eventually moved out because they couldn't afford to live there anymore. We had never really talked about what happened in the house, as if talking about it would make it worse. But after she moved, I finally said, "Dude, your house was haunted. I hope you realise that." She replied with, "Yeah, I knew it. Some guy and his granddaughter lived there, but he killed her and then himself, so it was probably them or something. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to scare you away from hanging around with me." Then she dug out a copy of a news article she got from a local paper about the murder. picture that went with the article was a picture of the man standing behind me. We moved into a new house a few months ago. As we were in the process of purchasing the house, the renter who was living in it died unexpectedly of natural causes in his mid-40s. He died right in the middle of the living room. Shortly after, we move into the house, and almost immediately our 2-year-old daughter starts talking about the ghost that lives inside our house. Now, let's be real here, she is 2 and 2-year-olds are very impressionable. Halloween had recently passed and she had this Halloween themed picture book that she loved to read, so it's entirely possible that all this talk of ghosts was just coming from looking through that book on a regular basis. Still, she was always telling me that the ghost was in her playhouse in the basement, or that the ghost was on the stairs, or that the ghost was standing in the corner. She never seemed to be afraid of the ghost and considered him to be her friend. So I wasn't all that concerned even if there really was a ghost haunting our house. If he's a nice and helpful ghost, it could certainly be a lot worse. I would often tell the ghost that he was welcome to stay if he wanted to, but he was also welcome to go if that would make him happier. I was about 30-70 on the ghost being real, and she could see and talk to him versus the ghost being imagination fueled by her Halloween book, until one day, when we were going out to the car to go to daycare in the morning. It was still dark and rainy. My daughter told me that the ghost was on the back deck, and then she told me that today was the ghost's birthday and she wanted to sing him happy birthday. Once again, I mostly disregarded what she was saying, as she is birthday obsessed and has been in the past made us sing happy birthday to Mickey Mouse, a bowl of fruit, snacks and the bathroom. So we sang and wished the ghost happy birthday and went on with our lives. Later that day, out of pure curiosity, I looked up the obituary of the man who died in our house, and wouldn't you know it, it was his birthday.